Make it just a little bit faster, and then original art will go away, because we're always about getting to the deadline, and I'm holding on to original art as long as I can because I'm old-fashioned. I like it, and it pays our mortgage. Ma'am, you had a question with Faro? The question is, do we find the microns smudge? You mean once the Copics go over them? No, and that's one of the reasons we like them, is that they seem fairly resilient to the Copics. They also seem fairly resilient to erasing. So you notice Adam's putting some line art on top of his pencils, even if he's doing like an inked page. When we erase the micron pigmas, they seem to have a better black quality even after erasure. So Adam really likes those for some of his professional work. Was there another question on this side? I thought I saw one. Okay. Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, I just noticed he does a lot of cover art now.
Yes, like the touch pens. These just happen to be the ones that we have and we work with. You could be doing this with an ink wash. You know, if you just have a bottle of Pelican ink and a cup of water, and you can be creating your own, you know, gradations of gray. It's the theory that applies, not you don't necessarily have to do it with the exact same.
I have to refill, so you get to watch the magic of the mess.
What's brilliant is, yeah. So one of the reasons we like the Copics is that you never have to throw them away. You can buy a bottle of ink and refill them. We've been working with the same set, I think, for over 10 years now, which is terrific. And even you can buy new pen nibs if those get junky. We never have. We just keep working with the same ones, because by the time you think, oh, I should get a new pen nib, you've already halfway through a project, and yeah. Yeah, so you can just buy a bottle of ink and refill them. The refilling, it comes with this fancy needle that you can stick in there and carefully drip the ink in.
It's just a syringe that you put on the top of here.
It's
and
just something for the TSA to take away from you when you walk through an airport, so we throw them away instantly.
And you learn really quick that the TSA thinks you've got more of them up your butt.
Right.
So if you really want a full cavity search, use the Copic needle refill. Otherwise, just do what I did and have a steady hand and refill it from the top. Seriously though, I mean, didn't have a cavity search, but
yeah,
they
really
were like, "What's this?" And I was like, "A needle." And they're like, "What's
Game
it
over.
for?" It's for my markers. You know, it's like it sounds absurd even here in a room full of artists.
Adam's just laying down like a base color. He'll go ahead and do shading later. We both work very differently. Adam likes to work lightest to darkest, so he'll lay down his lightest value and build up his shadows. That's just one way of working. If you attended my panel yesterday, I laid down my darkest value first, and then I worked towards the light. There's no right way. There's just what you get a good result with. And because this is a 10% gray, it's the W01, it works incrementally the way most transparent mediums do. He goes over it again, you're adding another 10%. Go over it again. You can really build up quite gradually if that's how you like to work.
Sort of almost like watercolor. Now you notice that I'm going over the ink lines that I put down for her face.
And they're not smearing.
They're not smearing. If I had gone with a full final ink on the face, it would be doing some smearage.
He's not being careful about those outlines either. You know, it's art. It doesn't have to be perfect. Some of that perfection comes in at the end. Those nice final line art that he's going to do at the very end of the piece, that's going to clean up and pull together a lot of that. Right now at this stage, Adam's not really worried about neat and tidy.
Translation, right now it's garbage, and in 45 minutes it'll be swell. I've gone to W2, just to give you an example. This is W1, and the Copics tend to go on a little darker.
And then they dry down light.
Dry lighter, which is nice.
And that might freak you out as you're working with it, but the more familiar you become with the product, you just sort of get the hang of it. Now, a familiarity with anatomy helps. Adam's going into areas where he knows, you know, we have a flat plane at our temple that's going to collect shadow. We have, you know, a pocket here along the side of our nose where the eye meets, that's going to collect a shadow. understanding anatomy helps. 30 years later, you know where that stuff's going to go. You don't have to look at a person or a photo to know how that'll work. You had a question, sir?
You mentioned earlier about like the gray and tan tone papers.
Yeah.
Do you find in sketching, say with a grayscale markers and that does that enhance or maybe take away at all with using that toned paper?
It's a different way of working, and it can save you a lot of time because the toned tan paper is the exact same value as the W3, and the toned gray paper is the exact same value as the C3, and it's like, bam, my middle tone is down.
Yeah.
Now I just have to add shadows, and I'll grab some white at the end and put in a highlight. It actually is, it's both a time-saving device, but also a creative exercise, forcing yourself to just go, I'm only adding shadows, or I'm only adding, those specular highlights, stuff like that.
I'm going back with the W1 to do a little bit of that additive stuff we talked about earlier.
And it also can soften your edges. Because the markers have the same vehicle, whether it's an alcohol or an acetone or whatever it is, you can keep going over some of those harder edges and it will eventually soften those, and that can be a style choice. I mean, I love when I see watercolors by artists and they've just got blotches of color with those hard edges, and when you step back, it all comes together to create an image. Or you can do that real soft approach, a more a naturalistic approach. You can make a decision with these pens to do one or the other or somewhere in the middle.
Okay, now I'm moving up to W3. And can you see here the slight difference? Does that read everybody up on that?
It does.
Thing up there? Now,
and again, you're almost noodling on it. You're just sort of building towards your final shadows, going back over areas that you've already gone over, using that additive quality, layering it up, getting the depth of the shadows. And we both work real similar in this regard. You're never quite done. You're always hopping around your piece, bringing it a little closer to where you want it to be. You might look at a finished product and go, genius. But while we're working on it, you're noodling towards that end. You're working, you're jumping around a little bit here, a little bit there.
I always refer to that as you're finding the artwork in the drawing.
Yeah.
It's like you sort of have a rough idea, like, hey, we're gonna drive west. Let's just go west. And it's like, well, where are you going? It's, I don't know. We'll figure that out along the way.
Is it Michelangelo that said that when he was sculpting, he in her hair? Yeah. Now, because the markers are refillable, it is pretty easy to go ahead and accidentally put the wrong ink in your marker. We've done that, where you go to grab C6 and you're like, wow, it's an 8, oh my god!
Yeah, I think I may have put C7 in this marker.
That's what made me think it's a little dark for C6, but run with it. That happens. It totally happens.
There's no mistakes in art, just
things you have to learn to work with.
just happy accidents. Anybody here remember Bob Ross? Anybody?
Yes.
Right.
I'm getting that Funko Pop of Bob Ross. That is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And, he's right. You really can't make a mistake. If something happens, you go, all right, that's part of the piece now. We're gonna work with it.
And again, it's not the end of the world. Let's say you can't work with it. It's just paper and ink. You can throw it away and start over. It is not the end of the world. I have people that they say all the time, what do you do if you've made this mistake? It's, start over. It's A-okay. You have a question, sir? You were saying something about research? What kind of research do we do about the markers? Before he starts the drawing? It depends on the project. I mean, for example, sitting here today, he just started. But he drew Wonder Woman professionally for 5 years and has been drawing her ever since.
Yeah, like if what's that?
That's
Oh,
C6.
this is C5 again. I was just going back in
To soften those edges.
To soften the C6, 7-ish thing up. Like, if somebody hands me a cover assignment and they said, oh, on this cover you have to draw, make sure it's a Sumatran tiger, not a Bengal tiger. It's like, all right, well, the first thing I have to do is
Right.
look up some porn on the internet because it's lunchtime. And then, then look up tigers. It's just sort of like,
You're looking up
I'm-
tigers, not cougars.
Yeah, there we are. There we are.
1.2 million.
That's the other reason I keep her around. There you go. So, anyways.
But like sometimes we don't get any information. You know, Adam was working on Tomb Raider covers, and they said, you know, hey, just make sure you hand in a cover every month. But do you want to know? Do you want us to make the cover match the story? No, we have complete faith in you, Adam. Just cover end of the month every month. So he submits this terrific cover, and she's in a bikini, and there's like palm trees behind her, and the book comes out, and like she is.
No, the book didn't come out. Previews came out.
Oh, that's what it was.
Previews came out, and it's like, you know, in Tomb Raider number 12, Lara faces dark ninjas at the North Pole. Right? I've got her like in a bikini bottom getting out of a pool with palm trees, and I was like,
And
wow.
they did not care.
Yeah, they were just like, can we have another one? You know. But the research was palm trees for that one. I was just like, okay, I could draw cartoon palm trees, but I could actually look at a real palm tree. I remember one time I was working on a Wonder Woman cover, and it was Wonder Woman being sucked into a vortex, and she's holding onto a porch, and like her feet are really big in the camera, and the background looked a little dull, so I was like, trees, I'm gonna put some trees. I actually turned on my computer and I Googled trees, and I'm just sitting there, and I was like, okay, the sort of like the ratio of leaves to like negative space, and I kind of looked out the window and I went, oh, I have trees in my backyard. I was like, I could have just looked out the window and went, oh, you know.
But I think that's an interesting point, because a lot of people would just say, I know what a tree looks like. I see trees all the time. I walk to work, I see trees, I look out my windows, I know what a tree looks like, I'm going to draw it. And you don't. You think you know what a thing looks like, and until you actually sit down and you're looking at it because it's in the room, or you're looking at it because you have a photo of it, you don't quite go, ooh, this tree has a smooth bark, as opposed to one of those ones that's got the cool craggly bark. And you think, oh, I didn't realize that this tree actually, the branches fork all at the same point, like a Bradford pear tree, as opposed to a pine, where they all actually hang downward from different points. You think you know a tree until you start looking at them. You think you know how light reflects off latex until you hire someone to come to your house and stand in a latex suit in front of a light kit, and you go, I did not think specular highlights were going to sit on those spots. Always look.
That's research. I mean,
Yeah, having to build your house in a latex suit is research.
you know, well, it's. I mean, I remember. What's that?
Are you kidding me? I'd be like, oh, is she coming? Can I get photos too? Yeah, it's. I also draw. I also want to know how is the latex going to look under that light? How's it going to look under hot spotlight? Like, Adam is just really amazing at rendering. I love to do a hot washout on one side into a shadow. So when that girl's over wearing a latex suit, I need to move the light kit because I want a different photo than Adam is going to want when he's looking at latex. We draw for a different result, but we're still wanting to look at real life to inform our drawing decisions. You know, people often say, oh, isn't using photo reference cheating? Only if, you want your artwork to look as an end result, you want a more realistic result.
Also, if you're just tracing it and like not learning from it, I mean, your greatest tool as an artist is your eyes. Observe the world and then translate it back through your talent. So, I mean, Allison just rattled off a bunch of facts about trees, and either you're a tree doctor,
I'm way into trees actually,
or you're an artist who went, oh, okay, I'm going to draw some trees. I mean, it's a great opportunity to learn things.
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoy the research part of any.
And that goes back to the question earlier about going to school. Adam enjoys the research part of things. He will sit down and really learn a thing. If it's an artist and a technique or trees, he's very good at self-informing. For folks that maybe are like, I know what a tree looks like. Oh no, you need to go to art school. You think you know what you're doing. You need 4 years of telling you, here's how you really learn.
And a really good art school will teach you how to teach yourself.
Right, exactly.
I mean, for me, as a self-instructed,
leaving bright whites there. You'll notice that when he was doing her flesh tones, he didn't leave any white areas.
Yeah, like
that's because he wants the whitest, the brightest to be in the metals.
The absolute brightest part, which is 0 on the grayscale, will be the highlights on the metallics, and the absolute darkest will be her hair and the darkest reflections in the metallics.
Because those metallics are going to reflect her hair. I think, again,
But they're also reflecting everything, like. That's the easiest part about reflections. People go like, how do you do them? How do you do them? You go, it's whatever's around the character.
I mean, people love to do that airbrush reflection thing where it's blue, tan, white.
Yeah,
it's
like every robot, no matter what they're doing, is somehow standing in the desert.
Yeah, unless you're in a desert, you're not reflecting the blue of the sky, the tan of the sand, and the hot white of the sun.
It's back in the 70s or the 80s, somebody came up with the shortcut of, hey, chrome is just blue sky, tan desert. And, but really, like if you were drawing somebody standing in this room, you would just take the colors and values of this room and you go, okay, there's not one giant bright source like the sun or a giant, wall with light on it. There's all these tiny little lights. So you draw the reflections of all these tiny little lights in the tiara or in the breastplate. And it just...
When I was in high school, we had a drawing assignment, and it was this coffee urn, and it was a chrome. They'd shine it to a polish, and we had to draw the coffee urn. I was like, all right, and I drew the outline, and I did the shadows like the way I know that chrome looks. And I looked at the kid next to me, and he had drawn all of the windows reflected in it, the cars out in the street, the trees on the sidewalk, and I went, oh, I did it wrong because I thought I knew what metal looked like. I didn't look at the thing in front of me and draw what I saw. I drew what I thought I knew. And that was like an eye-opening moment. Look at the things. Look at the Sumatran tiger, look at the trees. Yeah, look at the room around you and go, ooh, these things are all going to be reflected in my metal surface.
But then once you've looked at them and you've drawn them, has anybody ever when they've tried to learn how to spell a word? I was taught when I was a kid, if you don't know how.
They look very harsh, they look very rough. Then I go back in with one of these lighter grays and you can soften them. That vehicle's going to, again, just take sort of the roughness out of the edge and give it a little bit of a smooth quality. And sometimes you want that hard edge. That's going to work in your favor in some instances.
Now I'm going to do a little bit of regular inking, what I didn't do before. Actually, I use one of those brush pens, one of those Copic brush pens you said I don't like. Look, I've got one.
You do?
Haha.
Every once in a while, Copic will throw us something new. It'll be like, hey, try this, because we do these panels and maybe we'll talk about it. They gave us these brush pens like 18 months ago, and I don't ink, so that just sat right there at the side of the table and I didn't touch it. And brush pens generally are pretty crummy. And right before San Diego Comic-Con, I thought, well, maybe this thing will be, ooh, and it's like the nicest brush pen ever. And I ended up using it in one of my panels, and they came by and they were like, hey, there's more of those. So I handed them off to Adam. So they're actually quite nice. They've got a really nice flow. It works like a proper brush instead of splitting and splaying. It's actually got several fibers that just really do pull a wonderful fluid line. It's got a weird name. It's called, I think, gas infused. No idea what that means. I know, right?
Copic gas infused.
Yeah.
It's like the worst stripper name I've ever heard in my life.
Yes. We don't like the micron brush ones. No, they're garbage. They're more like a felt tip in a long point as opposed to a proper brush with multiple hairs. This is a proper brush with multiple hairs. So it works more like a brush. I mean, if you've come up working on a micron and you know how to make it work, God bless you. And again, that's where, for everybody, put on since then. And that's again, you just go back and forth the whole time. Now that you've added something dark, well, now you're going to darken up something else in your piece to lend it more definition. Just bringing everything back into play, bringing it back into balance. You could decide, I really wanted to add a dramatic shadow on this side. Now you've got to beef everything up to that shadow.
All right, now would be a time when you start to do just some of the finishing touches and the like I could go in and put white opaque paint over some of the highlights. Like let's say up here, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have filled that in. I really want to highlight there. Like normally I would have like a paint and a brush, and I would do it here. I'll just use a gel pen. You can go in, go back and reestablish your highlights.
And don't feel like, oh, it's got to be paint, it's got to be a gel pen. We're really bad about having just about everything lying around our drawing tables and grab it when you need it. If you look
mayonnaise makes a great
makes a great nothing. It makes a great sandwich. Not have mayonnaise. But like if you look at some of the work that's in Adam's portfolio downstairs, you'll start seeing some color pencils. And there's gray pencil, there's white pencil, there's brown pencil, there's a warm gray pencil. Anything that you can use to sort of lend that definition or get to that end goal, it's all fair game. So anybody that goes, oh, Adam uses just markers, I'm like, well, you're not looking at the work. If it gets you to where you need to be, where it gets the artwork to where you need to be, then it's all fair game.
I'm also a huge proponent of mixed media. I do not believe in purism. I'm absolutely against purism. That's how no, it's just I think that whatever works. I mean, just
sometimes like a black color pencil is going to be the blackest thing you can get on there. That's going to be darker than your dark black Copic ink. It's going to be darker than your
Prismacolor black pencil.
Yeah. And that can just really beef up for you.
Or it could just you could do like some extra wild, crazy strands of hair, like battle.
Oh, is that what it is? She's been fighting.
Yeah.
The black, there's a little swatch of the black at the side. Not too much though, because it's a very short tip and they didn't provide a sharpener. Oh.
I got one.
Oh, do you?
What's that?
Is there any Diet Coke in your work? I'll bet there is.
The cover to Wonder Woman 184. That's the one where old Wonder Woman, Golden Age Wonder Woman, is meeting modern Wonder Woman, and I had to do a coffee stain on it. So I was like, okay, well, I'll take some coffee, I'll spill it on a piece of blank paper, I'll scan it. When you try to make a coffee stain, the coffee is just going neener. You will never catch me. So that's actually a Diet Coke stain. I actually took a Diet Coke and spilled it on the paper and then put the can in the spill, let it dry, and then scanned it. But if I actually spilled marinara sauce or Diet Coke or mayonnaise or whatever on the art, I would just work it into the piece. I really would. I would wipe it off. Like if I spilled marinara on a black and white drawing, I'd clean up the marinara, lick my fingers, and go, now I'm doing a color piece. And I've done that once in my career. I actually got something color, a little lighter color, and just give them a little bit of life to it. You can go back in and just create little highlights to give it a little more life.
Again, he did that white bit first with ink, and now he's going over the pencil, and it's creating a different kind of a lighter spot than the ink does. Experiment with your medium. Decide for yourselves, well, this white does this for me, but this white does this. Do I like one better than the other, or am I going to use both of them?
And if you feel the need to go in and put a last little highlight, like on the nose or something, you can always. Anyways, that's kind of how you draw Wonder Woman in 45 minutes.